Good afternoon, everyone. So, I'm Dr. Jayshree, Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmacology Systems. Today, I'm going to deal with the topic called as a drug transporters. So, my objectives will be introduction, transporters involved in the pharmacokinetics and adverse drug reactions, mechanism of transporters, ABC transporters, hepatic transporters, intestinal transporters, and heat glycoproteins. And few examples. So transporters are nothing but it is a proteins, it is content proteins present in our organism which control the influx of essential nutrients and ions and the efflux of cellular waste, environmental toxins and other xenobiotics. So this will maintain the cellular homeostasis. Approximately 2000 genes in the human genome and 7% of the total number of genes code for transporters or transporter related proteins. So we have a ABC that is called as a ATP binding acid. So we'll call it as a primary active transports. We have seven subclass of families we have. And in case of SLC, it is otherwise called as a solute carrier transporter, facilitated transporters, and ion coupled secondary active transporters. So these transporters involve in both pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamic pathways. So here, this is the picture which showing that what is the role of membrane transporters in the pharmacokinetics. So look at it, whenever the drug you give, it becomes absorbed. So that absorption is also done by the transporter, so which increases the drug level in the body and therapeutic effect. And this, with the help of these transporters, it can reach the heart or through lungs, to the brain, or to the kidney, or to the liver. So this is metabolism is also done by the transporters, and it also transporters via this excretion is also done through the transporters, either the bile or through or urine. So what are the excretion is being done by a transporter. For example, I can tell you that furosemide. Furosemide is a diuretics, so that will inhibit transport. Pump is called as sodium potassium to chloride transporters. So when you're inhibiting that transporters, what happens is the reabsorption of that sodium and water molecule is introduced. So this causes a diuretic effects. So that's what excretion is also being done by the transporters. And also absorption is also done by the transporters. Even the drug has to transport it to the any parts through for example, to the brain. And also there is one more transporter is called the peak glycoproteins, which will be dealing with the last slides. Okay, that is also transport which is involved in the is a efflux transporters. So getting in and going out is everything is done by the transporters. Yeah, transporters plays a role in pharmacokinetic pathway of drug absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion, thereby setting up systemic drug levels. Drug levels often drive a therapeutic and adverse effects. Hepatic drug transporters. So these are the drug if you get in. So this undergo the metabolism, metabolic and metabolic too. So either it come out or again through the transporters, either goes into the canaliculi via transporters, or the drug itself which bypasses the metabolism, it can directly enter into the canaliculi or it may be excreted out. So this all being done by the transporters. Look at the membrane transporters. So some of the red oval shapes are transporters. Its work in concert with the phase 1 and phase 2 drug metabolizing enzymes in the hepatocytes to mediate the uptake or and efflux of drug and the metabolism. Either uptake is also transporters involved, and also in case of efflux process also transporters are involved. And what is a major mechanism by which transporters mediate the actions? Adverse drug reactions. Look at here. Clearance. So as we discussed, clearance is always be done by what? Through two organs. One is a liver, another one is a kidney. So when the drugs comes in, So if there is decreases in uptake or excretions, whether the concerned organ didn't take proper decrease in uptake or if it is not excreted out properly, so that will end up into what? Increases in the plasma concentrations. When there is a decrease in uptake or decreased clearance will end up into the plasma concentrations, increase plasma concentration. But here, when here, so this is a normal curve because when there is more exposure, there is a peak curve has been gone for a steep ride. So the peak is increased because decreased total clearance leads on to increase the plasma concentration. If the plasma concentration increase, automatically the exposure to the target organs is also being increased. Okay, from here to it been shifted to here. It means that the concentration, that exposure to the target organs is being increased. So automatically the concentration also increase, exposure is also increased. What will happen? It end up into the toxicity. So toxicology of target organs, liver, kidney, brain, etc. So this increases uptake or decrease if like same mechanism which increases the exposure and leads to toxicity. Not only to the drugs and also even the endogenous compounds, endogenous compound. There is a change in the transport of endogenous compounds. So what happens is plasma or target organ concentration for endogenous compound is increased. The lead to produce accumulations. And for example, digitalis, digoxin. So if it has been accumulated, it leads to produce a digitalis toxicity, it ends up into the arrhythmias. And also here, anticonvulsant drugs like phenytoins. So even though it is anti-epileptic drugs, if it has become accumulated, so that what happens is it end up into toxicity which beyond to produce a epileptic attacks. This being percent. What is the basic mechanism of membrane transport? Classification of membrane transport mechanism. One is a passive transport or active transport. Passive transport is nothing but it is a facilitate. It is a concentration gradient transport. It is a passive transport. It is a downhill transport. Downhill means higher to lower concentration. So from higher to lower concentration, it is being transporter. So in case of passive diffusions, mainly it is a pH mediated diffusion and also most of the lipid soluble drugs as being comes under in the passive diffusions. We know that all our plasma membranes is made up of lipids. So that is lipid soluble drugs crosses the blood-brain barrier very easily. So passive diffusions mainly comes in the lipid soluble drugs are mainly comes under the passive diffusions. In case of facilitated diffusions, most of the water molecules, it mainly depends upon the porosity of the membrane. Okay, so in case of higher molecular weight drugs, it will be filtered. Only in the lower molecular weight drugs, lower size drugs is being filtered through the pores, and it also needs some transporters. It also needs some protein to carry it. Okay, even though it is higher concentration to lower concentration, but facilitated diffusion is mainly for the water soluble drugs. So passive diffusion is mainly related to the lipid soluble drugs. So passive transport is mainly it is a downhill transport, that is a transported from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. Okay. Then active transport, that is uphill transport. Is what is meant uphill? Uphill means we need some energy, right? We need some energy to go from the lower region to the higher region. So the same thing, we need some transporters. We need some ATP, it is the energy dependent transporters. So from lower concentration to higher concentration, we need some support to carry the drug from one place to other place. That is called as a transporters. So we that transport we have a symport and we have an antiport. It's called secondary act transport. Symport is nothing but that is a same direction transport, a same direction. And in case of antiport means so there is a different direction with them. So either transport will come from one side to other side. Look at here. Say for example, if it is a drug means so this has been transported to one side, and the transporter um, will be directed from the opposite side. That is called antipode. Here, both the drug and the transporter goes in the same directions. And also primary act transfers, we need ATP to convert, and so we need a energy dependent. So all these are active transport is uphill transporters. It is important for numerous therapeutics, including oncology, due to their role both in regulating the pharmacokinetic, like absorption, distributions, eliminations, and the development of cellular drug resistance through decreased uptake or increased uptake. P-glycoprotein, which is present in the blood-brain barrier, it will protect the central nervous system from a variety of structurally diverse compounds through its efflux mechanism. So we cannot expect all the drugs to enter into the blood-brain barrier. Okay, especially the water-soluble drugs cannot able to enter into the blood-brain barrier. Also, lipid-soluble drugs enter easily to the blood-brain barrier. Since I said P-glycoprotein is a efflux transporters. So we cannot expect all the drugs to cross the blood because there is a efflux transport which is present in the BBB. So that will throw out of the drugs. Throw out of the drugs from the brain. Okay, what happened? So if you want the drug to travel to the blood-brain barrier, so what we can do is we can give a drug which will inhibit the P-glycoprotein. So automatically when we inhibit the P-glycoprotein, automatically the drug will process the blood-brain barrier and produces an actions. So we'll discuss in the forthcoming slides what the drugs which will inhibit the P-glycoproteins. So drug resistance. So membrane transporters play a critical role in the development of resistance to anti-cancer drugs, antiviral agents, and anticonvulsants. Example: P-glycoprotein is overexpressed in tumor cells after exposure to cytotoxic anti-cancer agents. So P-glycoprotein pumps out the anti-cancer drugs, rendering cells resistant to their cytotoxic effects. So since it pumps out the cells, so that the cells become resistant to the cytotoxic effects of anti-cancer agents. What are the transporters? We have other transporters like PCRP, there is a breast cancer receptor proteins, the organic anion transporters, and several nucleoside transporters, and also have been implicated in resistance to anti-cancer drugs. The overexpression of multi-drug resistant protein 4 is associated with resistance to antiviral nucleoside analogs. So mostly in case of anti-cancer drugs, P-glycoproteins, PCRP, and some other organic anion transporters. So those transporters are involved in the development of resistance to anti-cancer agents. Here, multi-drug resistant protein MRP4, so that has been involved in the development of resistance to the antiviral nucleoside analogs. ABC superfamily, what is that? It has been divided into 7 subgroups. It is essential for many cellular processes and contribute to human genetic disorders. So we have seen that ABC transporters like multi-drug resistant, then BCRP and multi-drug resistant protein plays roles in the blood tissue barrier in the brain, placenta, testis, and retina. And where are these transporters are distributed? MDR1 and MRP2 and BCRP is distributed in the apical side of the intestinal epithelia. To pump out xenobiotics, including many orally administered drugs, so these transporters are being involved. MDR1, MRP2, and BCRP, it is a bicanalicular membrane of hepatocytes. Commonly, these transporters are involved in the bicanalicular membrane of hepatocytes. And this also be involved in the pumping out of xenobiotics. What is meant by this? Nothing but its efflux transporter. It will pump out the drugs out from the body. And others like MDR1, MRP4, it is present in brain capillary endothelial cells. MDR1 and MRP1 present in the blood testis barrier, and MDR1, 2, and BCRP which is present in the luminal side of maternal placenta barrier. MRP1, it is anti-luminal fetal side of the placental trophoblast. What is ABC superfamily? Involvement of ABC superfamily in genetic disease. So there's few examples which have been discussed here. So there is ABCAs, which is a tangent disease. It is defect in the cholesterol transport. There is ABCA1. So when this transporter is being defected, it end up into the defect in the cholesterol transporters that end up into the tangent disease. And one more syndrome is called Dubin-Johnson syndrome, which defect in the biliary bilirubin glucuronide excretions. So excretion is being defected. So mainly there is a defect in the MRP2 and ABCC2 genes. So because of this involvement, independent Dubin-Johnson syndrome. And cystic fibrosis, defect in chloride channel regulations. There's ABC, that is adrenoleukodystrophy. It is a possible defect in peroxisomal transport or catabolism of very long chain fatty acid. So this is cystic fibrosis mainly defect in the chloride channel regulations. These are some hepatic transporters, sinusoidal membrane. It has been located. NTCP, organ transporter C, B2, and organic cation transporter 1 and 3, or primary active transporters like MRP1, 3, and multi-drug transporters like 1 and MRP2 and BCRP. These are some few transporters are present in the liver, which is located in the canalicular membrane and sinusoidal membrane. So this is a picture which showing the transporters, the hepatocytes that function in the uptake and efflux of the drugs across the sinusoidal membrane and efflux of drugs into the bile across the canalicular membrane. So this is a canalicular membrane and this is sinusoidal membrane. So these are the uptake transporters like organic cation transporter P1, P1, P3 and P2, P1, 2, and organic cation transporter 1 and NTCP proteins, and this is a uptake transporter. This is efflux transporters like MRP1, 3, and 4. So this is a transporters which is being transporting drugs into the bile across the canalicular membrane. That is MDR3, MDR1, MDP2, BCRP, and BACP. So these are some transporters which is being used for effluxing the drugs into the bile across the canalicular membrane. Fine. Transporters in drug distributions, uptake and excretions. And what are the transporters? For uptake from blood to hepatocytes, we have seen organic iron transporter P1 and P1 and P1 and P3. Efflux is mainly done by the P-glycoprotein and BCRP proteins. So what happens is if the uptake is being reduced or the efflux has been reduced, what will happen? So automatically the blood level concentration is increased in the system circulations. So I've given an example. This is cyclosporin. It is a drug, anti-cancer agents, which is the affected drug is rosuvastatin. Whenever you combine with the cyclosporin and rosuvastatin, so what happens is the rosuvastatin exposure has been increased. It means that efflux is been reduced. So automatically the concentration increase. Look at here, this there is a sevenfold increase in the plasma concentration. So fold changes in substrate plasma. It is area under curve. You see there is sevenfold increase in the plasma concentration. And lopinavir and ritonavir, it is a anti-HIV drugs. So this is also inhibitor. When you combine with the rosuvastatin, the same thing has happened. There is a rosuvastatin exposure is increase. There is a twofold increase in the plasma concentrations. This one. Cyclosporine and rosuvastatin interaction is called drug-drug interactions. Cyclosporine, which increases the sevenfold exposure of rosuvastatin. The possible mechanism is inhibition by cyclosporine. This is this transporter. Organic iron transporter P1 and B3 uptake transporters or efflux transporters inhibited. The concentration in the plasma is being increased. These are some intestine transporters like organic iron transporters BTE and MTR1, MRP2, MRP3. These are some peptide transporters. And also we have seen that in case of renal, there is called a urea transporters. So propanacid, what is propanacid? Propanacid nothing but it is a uricosuric drugs. So So normally in case of gouty arthritis, what will happen? The uric concentration has been increased. So what this propanacid does it will go and inhibit a transporter called nuclear transporter which is present in the proximal convoluted tubule. So what happened? By binding with the neurotransmitters. So automatically that uric acid, so you know that proximal convoluted is most 60 to 80% of drugs, everything, all electrolytes, everything is reabsorbed back through this PCT. So when the propanacid got inhibit the transporters, automatically the reabsorption of uric acid has been reduced. Okay, so automatically the uric acid plasma concentration is also been reduced and gouty arthritis is also been stopped. All the effects, inflammation, everything has been reduced. That way uric acid excretion has been increased when you give a propanacid. So not only the propanacid which is involved in neurotransmitters and also propanacid is also been a drug which has been given along with the penicillin. What is the importance of giving a penicillin with the propanacid? So penicillin has also been excreted via glomerular filtrations. Excretion has been it has been eliminated. So when you give a propanacid, automatically that excretion has been reduced, the penicillin concentration is raised. So so no need to give a repeated dose of penicillin. So when you give a propanacid along with penicillins. So this is a some few examples is involved in the renal. Transporters in the small intestinal enterocyte. So when the drug has been absorbed, so it undergoes a cytochrome P3A4. It is a metabolizing enzyme, enterocytes. So it produces a metabolite. So that metabolite, with the help of weak glycoprotein, it has been expressed out as a metabolite, or the drug itself, it has been expressed by the weak glycoprotein. So we understand this picture. So when the drug has been given with the help of organic ion transporter, it goes to the enterocyte, or it directly, without involving the transporter, it directly absorbed. So once it absorbed, either it is metabolized with help of a cytochrome P3A4 or it directly effluxed. Once it enters, what the big glycoprotein does is it pushes the drugs out from the body. Or the drug may undergo a cytochrome enzyme, metabolizing agent, and in the develop a metabolite. So that metabolite is been excreted via P glycoprotein. Transporters in the drug absorption, important intestinal transporters. So this efflux to intestinal luminance, P glycoprotein, ABCB1, breast cancer resistance protein, CRP. So the affected drug is digoxin and the inhibitor drug is quinidine. So when you combine these two agents, so digoxin exposure has been increased. So efflux, so that efflux transporter has been inhibited, automatically the concentration is increased. Look at a 1.7 fold raised. So that's why if you combine pyridine with the digoxin, that end up into the discharge toxicity. These are the examples of transporters, inhibitors, and inducers. So when you look at here, these are the transporters. You know that peak glycoprotein we have discussed, breast cancer resistant proteins, organic anion, organic cation transporters. SLC. So these are SLC, these are APC2. So when you see that amiodarone, carvedone, clarithromycin, so many drugs we have given. In that cyclosporine, so cyclosporine is a major drug which is involved in the all the transporters. And here the inducer is carbamazepine, phenytoin, rifampicin, St. John's wort, lopinavir, and ritonavir. So these are some inducer, but we have so much of inhibitors. So these are some inducers. P glycoprotein. P glycoprotein 1 is a permeability glycoprotein, abbreviated as a P glycoprotein, is also known as a multi-drug resistance protein 1. It is an ATP dependent efflux pump. This has been extensively distributed and expressed in the intestinal epithelium. And where it pumps xenobiotics such as toxins or drugs back into the intestinal lumen. In the liver cells, where it pumps them into bile ducts. So the mechanism action is so anti-neoplastic drugs once it enters. So either with the help of the glycoproteins, it is will reflect out. So when you give an inhibitor, the glycoprotein inhibitor, if you give, this will go and inhibit here. So automatically, this efflux action is also being inhibited. Sort of the concentration of the anti-neoplastic anti-cancer agent has been increased. Functions. What are the functions of peak glycoproteins? It regulates the distribution and viability of drugs. Increase the intestinal expression of peak glycoprotein can reduce the absorption of drugs that are substrates for peak glycoproteins. Thus, there is a reduced bioavailability and therapeutic plasma concentrations are not attained. On the other hand, supratherapeutic plasma concentrations and drug toxicity may result because of decreased peak glycoprotein expressions. Active cellular transport of anti-neoplastic resulting in multi-drug resistance to these drugs. Act. The removal of toxic metabolites and xenobiotics from cells into urine, bile, and the intestinal lumen. The transport of compound out of the brain across the plasma, blood-brain barrier. Protection of hematopoietic stem cells from toxins. So when you give a toxins, when you give anti-cancer agents, you can this peak glycoprotein will protect the hematopoietic stem cells. So these are the substrates. So these are the substrates for peak glycoprotein. It means that so peak glycoproteins will affect these drugs, affect these drugs response like colchicine, cyclosporin, digoxin, fexofenadine, flunabar, morphine, sirolimus. These are substrates and inhibitors are amiodarone, erythromycin, ketoconazole, quinidine, sacubitril/valproate. So these are the agents, these are the inhibitors of peak glycoproteins. So when you give these drugs along with the peak glycoprotein, if you want to drug to act. So what happened? So when you give these agents along with the drugs, so automatically it inhibit the peak glycoproteins. Automatically the effects of these agents will be reduced. And what are the inducers is carbamazepine, rifampicin, St. John's wort, and tryptophan. These are few pictures which I'm going to show you the mechanism. So these are the vesicles. These are the vesicles. These are some neurotransmitters. So this vesicle comes out, this neurotransmitter comes out, and this is a synaptic cleft, the postsynaptic membrane, where it acts on the receptors. Again, once action is over, again through the reuptake, this is called as a reuptake transporter. Through the reuptake transporters, again it goes and stores in the vesicles. Okay, so this is normally happens. So, this is one of the um, example. There is a dopamine transporter has been blocked by the cocaine. So here this is the transmitting neuron dopamine. So dopamine comes out, it will go and act on the dopamine receptors. So again, this dopamine should be taken back via these reuptake transporters. What is happen is there is a drug called cocaine. It's a that it is an abuse drug. So this cocaine will block this dopamine transporter. So will block this reuptake transporters. What will happen is the dopamine concentration is increased. What is the need of dopamine concentration? Because dopamine is involved in the reward pathway. So when you give a cocaine, so dopamine has been increased, it produce some reward, it produce some pleasurable effect in the body. So this is one of the example where the cocaine blocks the dopamine reuptake transporters. And this is a SSRI, serotonin reuptake transporters. For example, fluoxetine. So fluoxetine, what does this? Look at it, the serotonin comes out, it acts on the receptor and the reuptake is inhibited by the fluoxetine. Serotonin reuptake transporter is inhibited by the fluoxetine. So serotonin concentration is increased. So this can be used as an antidepressant. So what is the conclusion is understanding the transporters and their interactions provides a mechanistic approach to explain the variability in pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, and safety clinical trials. So by this you can identify the patients at risk of developing adverse events associated with the drug in questions or at risk drug combinations and also lead to actionable steps to manage the interactions. Thank you.